Hello and welcome back to the Virtualmanc YouTube channel. On this channel you find the latest news about Azure Virtual Desktop, Intune, Nerdio, Windows 365 and much more. So today's topic is something which comes up quite often with myself. So customers ask, what about App Attach? How are you delivering applications to your golden image or session hosts? A lot of customers spend a lot of time installing stuff into their image and they love the idea of using App Attach because App Attach has been around for a while, so its previous name was MSIX App Attach, and it basically promised faster logins, lightweight management, no more golden images, and that was the dream, right? So what we're going to do today, we're going to go over what is App Attach looking like in 2025. Right, we'll go over and implement App Attach in my dev environment. We'll set all the storage accounts up, package an application, and then show you how to deliver it onto the session host. And once we've done that, we'll discuss the actual downsides, because it's not just upsides, there are some downsides to it, because it's the main reason why adoption hasn't been that great. I have some customers try it, and there are quite a few limitations to it. So if you watch towards the end, I'll explain what those limitations are, but for now, what we're going to do is we're going to go and basically set up App Attach from scratch, right? We're going to package an application and then deliver it and see what it looks like. Please stick around and let's get to it. All right, so how has App Attach got better? As I mentioned, MSIX App Attach has been around for a while now in the previous name. It used to be only supported for Active Directory and it was quite limiting. It was a bit clunky to use and you had to do a lot of stuff manually. Microsoft have put a lot of effort into it, specifically Gmail, and they made it a lot better. So just going to quickly go through what the improvements are. I think the biggest improvement in 2025 is the fact that App Attach is now supported natively within Azure Portal. Previously we had to run PowerShell scripts stuff to register applications. Now I can just upload an application in the native Azure Portal and it will just work. We'll show you that as well. Big news as well is App Attach now supports AVD integration. Previously that wasn't supported, but there's a lot of customers who are trying to move away from AVD, but obviously AVD is such a cool product, it just works. Microsoft extended the support for AVD and added the integration into App Attach to allow those customers a bit longer to migrate off AVD. So that's definitely a game changer for a lot of customers who are still very heavily dependent on AVD. The other big change that we got with App Attach compared to MSIX App Attach is we can now do applications per user, right? So again, that's a game changer. So previously, when you're delivering MSIX App Attach onto session hosts, the applications were available for all users who logged onto that session host. We can do per user assignments, which is very cool. We've got PowerShell integration support, so we can do more scripting and automation. We've got multi-version app assignments, so you can have multiple versions of applications installed onto the same host pools, so the users can pick and choose what they want. And obviously that's a big benefit of using application virtualization, right? Essentially it's all in a container. The biggest thing for me is it now supports Entra ID. Previously you had to have Active Directory, it didn't support pure Entra ID support, but what we're going to show you in the demo today is how to deliver it using Entra ID. So in my new environment I'm trying to do native Entra ID as much as I can. It is a bit challenging, but I'm trying to get there. The demo that I'm going to show you today is how you use this with pure cloud only accounts. We don't have any Active Directory at all, right? We're going to deliver this using pure cloud only accounts. All right, that's it. These quite a few changes in the latest version of App Attach, so maybe for some people it's good to revisit it, but essentially App Attach for me is great for those simple stateless applications. So think about your Google Chromes and your WinZips, really simple applications. It really struggles with complex scenarios. We'll talk about that as we go through the packaging process, but yeah, that's what we're going to do today. Let's actually go and see this in action. So we're going to create a storage account, we're going to basically package the application, and then we're going to upload it, and then we're going to test it and see how all that works. Okay, all right, let's go and do this. Now I'm going to create the storage account. So we're just going to head over into the Azure portal. So this is me in the portal. We're going to go to storage accounts and then create. This is the resource group you want to point the resource into, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this Virtualmanc App Attach 2. Okay, and then the region is going to be the region which your session hosts are placed in, right? That's really important. So if you're in multiple regions, we'll need to create multiple storage accounts because this storage account needs to be close to the session host for the best performance. Primary service, we're going to do Azure Files. I'm going to select this. For production environments, I'd recommend Premium. I'm just going to do standard for testing purposes. And then we can do pay-as-you-go or provisions. So we're going to go to redundancy. We don't need geo. If you obviously production environment, probably recommend this, but I'm just going to select LRS to keep my cost down. But if you want redundancy, then definitely select geo. I'm going to click next. Nothing we need to change here, okay? And this is all just standard stuff, so we don't need to. Definitely hot tier. Enable large files is selected by default. We're going to select next. In a production environment, we would probably want to do private endpoints in there, but just for testing purposes, I'm not going to bother doing that. If you're doing this in your production environment, definitely create a private endpoint so nobody from outside your Azure network can access those file shares. I'm just going to go next. Again, we're just going to go the default settings here. We don't need to change anything within here, so we're all good here. We're going to select next. We're going to select encryption type. Just again, it's going to be the default, so blobs and files only. Okay, so we're going to select that, and then we're going to select next. And that's going to go and create that storage account. So primary service is going to be Azure Files because it needs to be SMB file share, and then we're going to click the create button. So the storage account is now created. Now we need to join the storage account to Entra ID. Let's go and do that now. So if I go into my storage account, go to file shares. Okay, so we don't have any file shares, so we need to create a file share. I'm going to go to file share, name, I'm going to just call this App Attach. Okay. File share can only contain lowercase, right? Okay. App Attach. Okay. All right. So I'm going to select that. Backup. So again, you may want to do this in your production environment, but we don't need to do it here. Select next, and then create. Okay. So now we created the file share. Okay. So now we need to go ahead and join the file share to ID, because the session hosts are going to be Entra ID joined. So we're going to need to configure some permissions, which we're going to allow the Azure Virtual Desktop service itself and the session host to mount the host. We're just going to go into here and then join the file share to Entra ID. Okay, if I go back to my file share, we can see we've got identity-based access not configured. So what I'm going to do now is identity-based access. We've got a couple of different options here. We don't want this. Because we're not using Entra ID domain services, that's not supported on App Attach. So the only one left is Microsoft Entra Kerberos. So I'm going to select Setup. Then I'm going to tick this box here. Okay, what that's going to do, that's essentially going to create a app registration within our Entra ID, which we'll go and look at in a second. So then we've got domain services. So if you have an on-prem domain, you can add some stuff in there as well, which will enable you to manage permissions from your on-prem domain. So we're going to select save, so that's updated the storage account. Now we've joined our storage account to Entra ID. Okay, so what we do now is we go into our portal, and then we need to give admin consent onto that app registration which is created. So we go to configure. You can see there, after enabling Entra ID Kerberos, you'll need to explicitly grant admin consent to the new application registration. So I'm going to search for my app registrations. Go to all applications. You can see here we've got some ones up here, some that I've done earlier for testing. So this is the new one that we've got here. Okay, so I'm going to select that, go to manage, and then go to API permissions. Okay, and you can see here we need to create admin consent. So I'm just going to go and click grant admin consent for default directory. So for this, you're going to need global admin permissions. So we're going to click that. Okay, so now we've granted that admin consent. And the next thing we need to do, we need to go and give some permissions to that storage account, right? And so there's some things that we need to do to the session hosts, right? So what we've actually done in earlier, I've actually pre-created some Entra ID groups. I'll show you in here. So what I've done, I've created a group called App Attach Session Hosts. This contains 2 of my session hosts that I've been testing with. We actually need to give that permission to read that storage account. We also need to give permission to the Azure Virtual Desktop service itself for that storage account. Let's go and do that now. I go to my storage account, and I'm going to go to access control. Right, so there's a few permissions that we need to give it here. So I need to go to role assignments, and then I'm going to click add role assignment. So the permission we need to give this is SMB file data share reader. So that gives the session host the ability to read that information. We're going to select that, select next, and then select my group. We're going to call it App Attach Session Hosts. The next, review and assign. That's done. Now we need to give the actual Azure Virtual Desktop service itself permissions to read the storage account. The portal, and give it the permission of reader and data access. If I go into my portal here, I'm going to search for reader and data. Okay, so this is essentially giving the Azure Virtual Desktop service the ability to read stuff within the storage account. Okay, it's using the storage account keys to do that. Right, so I'm going to select that, and then we're going to select members, and in here I just type in Azure Virtual Desktop. Okay, so we can see here we've got two. So we've got Azure Virtual Desktop and the Azure Virtual Desktop ARM provider. Right, so we need to select both. Next, review and assign. Okay, so that's now done. Right, so let's just quickly recap what we've got here. So we've essentially created a storage account. We've joined the storage account to Entra ID. We've assigned the read permissions for the Azure Virtual Desktop session host to read that storage account, and we've also given the Azure Virtual Desktop service itself the permission to read the details from that storage account. Right, so now we need to package an application. Then we need to upload the files into the storage account share, and then we'll add that onto a session host. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get an application ready. The big thing about MSIX App Attach is it requires the application to be in a certain format called MSIX. Okay, and then once we've packaged it into MSIX format, we can then convert it into VHD, VHDX, or CIFFS format as well. So that's what we're going to go through now. Microsoft are starting to release more native MSIX packages, but if you've got the custom applications, we'd need to convert them first, which is what we're going to do now. I've got a packaging VM ready. This is a free tool you can download. We've downloaded the MSIX packaging tool. You can use a custom third-party solution, but this is a Microsoft one provisioned especially for this. We're going to click on that. This is a standard Windows 11 VM. Before we can package the application, we need to create a certificate. Okay, so this is a self-signed certificate that I'm using for testing, but again, in a production environment, you probably use a proper production certificate, but this is just going to be self-signed. Right, this is a quick PowerShell script I just put together. This will create the certificate for me and then export it. When we package the application, we can then select that certificate, and then it will be signed with that certificate. Okay, so I'm just going to run the scripts. That's basically created the certificate for me. If I go to there, so that's my certificate. Right, so these are the certificate that we're going to use when we are actually packaging the application. Let's head back over to the packaging. Go to create the application, create the package on this computer. Specify Google Chrome. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder, select the application here, so installer, go to Google Chrome. Now here's where I select the certificate. Sign with a certificate, PFX. Right, so I'm going to select that certificate that we just generated. It's asking me for that password. So the password was in the PowerShell scripts that we created. So just going to paste that here. There you go. So we're giving it the password it needs. Select next. So these are all default information picked up from the installation file, or you can modify these as much as you need to. So we're just going to leave these as default. And we go to next. Create a new package, so we don't need any accelerator. Click next, and it's going to go ahead and kick off the install. So what it's doing now is capturing everything, register keys, services, that type of thing. Then it will use that information to create the MSIX package for us. So it's captured all that information. So that's installed Google Chrome. It's capturing first launch task. So again, we can just leave that at default. We don't need to do anything there. Am I done? Yep, I'm done. I don't need to modify. So click move on. And next is going to look at the services which have been deployed and see if we need those services. These are update services that it runs. Right now, if you're in a package, you don't want that to update itself because you want to manage the updates by the package itself. So we're going to disable all these or remove these from the package, right? And so I'm going to select this one, and then we're basically going to select exclude selected services. So these are not going to be included with the package. Okay, so we're not going to have any services, which is good. Next, I'm going to create this new package. So we're just going to browse and select where we want it to go. So I'm going to copy it to that same file location. I'm going to call this Google Chrome. I'll do it in lowercase. Google Chrome MSIX file. Save. Then I'm going to select create. And that's going to create the MSIX file for us. Okay, so it says that successfully created the package. So let's just head over. So yeah, there we have it. We've now got our MSIX file. All right, so that's now ready to convert into a VHDX format. Let's go and do that now. I've downloaded something called MSIX Hero. It's what I use for doing this. It's easy to use. So just pre-installed that. It only took a few minutes to install. So what we're going to do now is convert this file into a VHDX file. So we're going to go to Tools. Let me just expand this for you. And then we're going to go to basically Create App Attach Volume. Right, so Create App Attach Volume. I'm going to add the package. So we're going to point it to the package that we just created. So I'm going to go to File C, MSIX, and then Google Chrome. Let's find that file. And then we're going to select Create App Attach. You've got some options here as well. So actually, yeah, we need to convert this into VHDX. You can use SIM, but there's an error at the moment on the Azure portal, on the App Attach portal, about issues with 24H2. So I'm going to skip that for now. So I'm just going to select VHDX for now, and then we're going to select the option to extract the certificate as well. Okay, we don't need these scripts here, so I'm just going to unselect that. Then we can select it to be dynamic in the side of the script as well. All right, so I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to tell it to export into this VHDX folder. I'm basically going to call this Google Chrome.vhdx. Okay, so I'm going to select that. We're going to select yes. That's going to go ahead and create that VHDX file for us, and then we can upload that directly onto the storage account. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will work nicely. Okay, so it says it's completed. So let's now go and have a quick look and see what format that's in. So if I go into here, so yeah, there you go. So basically, we've got this VHDX file, right, and we've got the certificate, and then we just got this JSON file as well, right? Okay, so what we now need to do is we need to take this certificate. Okay, and then we need to install it onto the session host, because without it, it won't be trusted. So let's go and do that now. Then once we've done that, we'll upload the package onto the Azure portal and test this out and see if it all works. So what I've done is I've copied this certificate. This is the one that we did with the export, and I just pasted it into the C drive. So it's the same certificate. We just run this quick PowerShell command, which is import certificate, and then we point it at that certificate and put it in this location, because this is the one which is going to read for this certificate. Okay, all right, so I'm just going to run scripts. Okay, so we can see that's now imported that certificate into that store. So now we should be okay to go into the Azure portal and upload this file into App Attach, and let's see what happens. Okay, so now that we've got the package, we now need to upload the package into the storage account. Right, so that will enable the Azure Virtual Desktop service itself to read the files. Right, so we're going to head over into Storage Explorer, and then I'm going to upload that. There's multiple ways you could do this. You could also connect to storage account using your SAS keys, but we're just going to basically do it here using Storage Explorer because I find it a bit quicker and easier to use. Okay, so I'm just going to head over into my Storage Explorer. So this is the storage account. So I'm going to click on File Shares, and then we're going to see our App Attach. Okay. So now we need to copy the files that we've packaged up. So I'm just going to go onto the packaging VM. All right. These are the files. I'm just going to select these. In fact, I just need this one here, actually. Yeah, we're going to select this file here, and then I'm going to copy it onto my local machine. I'm going to go to here and call it MSIX, and then we're going to call this new one. So call this latest. Okay, and that's going to copy the file down to my local machine. So I'll be back in a sec when that's finished. Okay, so the file's copied now. We'll go back into our Storage Explorer and upload that. So now we'll go into Storage Explorer and upload that file. It's going to be latest, and it's going to be Google Chrome.vhdx. Okay, so I'm going to select that and upload that into the directory. So that's there now. Now we head over into the Azure portal, go to Azure Virtual Desktop. So here we can see where the new App Attach functionality is, right? You can see now natively with the portal. So previously we had to use PowerShell scripts to attach these files, but now we can just do everything natively through here. So I'm going to click Create. I'm going to select from the storage account, right? So if you wanted to point to an AVD file, this is where you would do it, by the way. But for here, we're just going to use the storage account. So I'm going to point it to the new one that we just created. Now here's where we select. So I'm going to connect to the storage account. This is the file that we just uploaded. You can see there it can read. So this is the reason why we had to add the Azure Virtual Desktop service with the permission, so it can actually do this and read inside the directory. I'm going to click select. This is reading that VHDX file and the MSIX files inside that. You can see where it's basically saying MSIX package. I'm going to select that, so it's reading that. Right, so I'm going to display name, so Google Chrome test, for example. Okay, and you can see it's picked up the file version from there as well. We're going to do register logon. So registration type will be on demand, so it will basically do the attach when the user clicks the icon. We're just going to do register logon, so it's there straight away when the user logs on. We're going to do next. Here's where the new functionality is, where we can assign this to users. Right, so I'm going to add in there, and that's going to select me. So I'm going to select my user account, select that. Okay, so that means that only me would see it. So if other people logged onto the host pool, they won't see it because I've only signed the application to myself. Select next, next, and then we're going to click create. Okay, so do some stuff in the background. This will be within the actual Azure portal itself, because we go here and we can see it's created that app attach. Cool. So now we should be good to go. You can see here some configuration settings you could put in there, like register logon, state, active. So we need to put that to active, otherwise nothing's going to happen. If you want to disable this or something, you just select that to inactive. Okay. Then you can look at the properties in there. Cool. All right. So let's go and test this. If you wanted to modify hard host pools, users, for example, we can do that on demand, right? Okay, so now we're going to log on to the host pool and just make sure, and then see all this works. Okay, so this is me logged on to the non-optimized host pool. I'm just going to log off. All right, so now we're going to log on to the session host. So we're using non-optimized, so we'll see what this looks like. You can see we have a Google Chrome icon on the desktop. And to prove that we don't have Google Chrome installed, I'll show you in App Remove Programs. So just to prove we don't have Google Chrome installed, we can see here we have nothing in the programs, but we have the icon on the desktop. And if we just launch Disk Management, what you'll be able to see is the actual application itself attached. So if I go to Computer Management, click Finish, click OK, and then go into Disk Management, what we should see is an extra VHDX attached. All right, so this is this here. Okay, so this disk one, that's the actual attach. Okay, all right, so let's just go and launch this and just make sure it works. There we go. We are launching Google Chrome. So this is the app attach version. Okay, so don't sign in, skip. See, these are all the stuff that you could customize in a normal corporate environment. And there we go. We have the app attach version of Google Chrome running pure cloud-only accounts on Entra ID join. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so that's for the plus side. So obviously, simple applications like this, it works great. It's good. The downside for me is, if you see how much effort we've had to do to get here, I've had to convert the package from MSIX format into VHDX. If you have an MSI install program, you have to go from MSI to MSX, and then from MSX into VHD, and it could get a bit cumbersome. Obviously, there are third-party providers out there who can do it a bit better. They have lots of integrations with some third-party vendors. There are some limitations as well around stuff which doesn't work. Anything which requires a driver or any deep interaction with the operating system is not going to work. Right? Anything like drivers, COM plus plugins, services, and it needs to interact with other services in the operating system can be limiting. Other downside is a separate layer for administration, so there's no integration with Intune or anything like that, and you need to manage another storage account and manage IOPS and cost as well. For my personal opinion, if you want to get to that stage where you don't want to put all these applications in your images, and you're happy to go through the effort of basically having to package your applications up into this format, great solution. If your applications work, any complicated applications may struggle, so anything like kind of VPN software will struggle. But if you've got a bunch of really simple applications that don't get updated very often, and you don't want to install them in your images, and you want to dynamically assign them to host pools or limit users who are using them, this is an amazing solution. And the fact that we now support native Entra ID is a big step forward as well. Yeah, give it a try. As I mentioned, the big downside is the amount of effort time and effort that you need to put in to getting the applications into that format. But again, if you've got the time and resources available to do that, then this is a great solution. All right, that's it from this week. I hope you found this useful. I'll see you next week for another video. Thanks. Bye bye.